Inaccuracies among War Thunder's top tier jets. Part 3. Number 1. Given that the F4E has a CCIP system, countermeasures and Maverick capability, it should also have the TI-SEO camera embedded in its left wing, which was an electro-optical system to visually identify targets at beyond the normal visual range. The camera could be slaved to the radar, meaning anything the radar locked, the camera would immediately display. I guess in-game this would mean that any target locked with your radar would immediately be spotted, which sounds pretty good to me. Interestingly, no other nation's Phantoms had this, at least to my knowledge. One reason I can see why Gaijin hadn't bothered with this is that the camera would only display in the rear cockpit seat, not to the pilot, but it's still an inaccuracy of the visual model. Number 2. The Mig21 SPSK has R3R missiles, which it never had the radar to be able to guide. Gaijin have given it this capability since it was always available for purchase on the same airframe to export customers and was just never selected by Germany. But what's more an inaccuracy is that it also has the double pylons, which are completely unique to early Polish model Mig21 PFMs that physically couldn't carry the R3R at all. This was more of an issue when the R3R was the aircraft's best missile on the initial dev server, but since it got R13Ms and R60s in game, the R3Rs and dual pylons could just as easily be deleted anyway, making it accurate to the German model. Number 3. The Harrier GR3 has a laser tracker in its nose, in fact it was the defining feature of that variant. Currently, this has no functionality in game. While the Harriers could carry paveways and did in the Falklands War in 1982, the laser tracker couldn't actually be used to guide these bombs. Instead, Harriers required other assets on the ground to do the lasing for them. What the GR3's laser tracker was predominantly a laser rangefinder, which would still be quite useful. Number 4. The SPS-141 ECM pod on the Mig21 SPSK, MF and SMT currently blocks the airbrake from being deployed, which shouldn't be the case. The forward airbrakes were still able to deploy fully with the pod installed, and even with larger ordnance on the centre line they would deploy partially. Oddly enough, this doesn't occur with the Mig21 BIS SAU, which even deploys its rear airbrake with the pod that ends up clipping through it. I guess you could call that 4A. Number 5. The Israeli A4E Skyhawk Premium is a later model upgraded to A4H standard, which ironically the actual A4H in the tech tree is a pre-upgrade model. That's not an inaccuracy. The inaccuracy is that the A4E Premium is firing AIM-9Bs rather than AIM-9Ds. Israel had already phased out the AIM-9B by the time these aircraft were entering service with these upgrades, and the AIM-9D was their main missile. Of course the A4E would have to go up in BR, but I don't really see this as an issue. Number 6. The F4Es and EJs should have a ground radar mode, showing both range to target and also contour lines. The latter would be extremely useful in ground battles at night, which take place pretty frequently at top tier. Several other aircraft also had this, including the A7s and the Mirage 3E. Number 7. The F4EJ Kai has a modified version of the F-16 Falcon's APG-66 radar, which has a TWS mode. This stands for Track While Scan, allowing the radar to lock a single target while continuing to scan for others. This couldn't be used with Sparrows, as they require the full energy of the radar directed at a single target, but it would allow you to lock one target while keeping an eye out for closer threats, something I know I at least would find extremely useful. Number 8. The Mig21 BIS SAU should not have R13M1 missiles, as East Germany was never exported them. I expect this is another one of those cases where, because it was an option, Gaijin see it as viable, but the R13M1 actually requires completely new pylons, which the Soviets weren't offering as an export option for East Germany. Number 9. The Ale40 countermeasures dispenser system currently has too many flares, allowing you to carry 90 flares, 90 chaff, 45 of each, or a flare priority setting with 60 flares and 30 chaff, the latter of which should not exist at all. In reality, the Ale40 dispensers were only able to carry 30 flares total, while being able to carry up to 120 chaffs, or a mixture of 30 flares and 60 chaffs. On the F5E, those pods could hold no more than 60 chaff, or 15 flares and 30 chaff combined. Number 10. For some reason, the Nesher currently has the Serrano 1 BIS search and track radar. I don't really know what to say about this, it shouldn't have one. Just a navigational radar, which aren't usually modelled in game. Number 11. The Kefir C7 is missing paveway laser-guided bombs, along with the targeting pod to guide them. It was also cleared for carrying AGM-65 Mavericks. And number 12. Having received the GBU-15 guided bomb, the F4E should also have received the AXQ-14 data link pod, which allowed the Wizzo to see what the bomb was seeing mid-flight, and even make mid-course corrections, basically turning the GBU-15 into a gliding Predator missile. Given that it can be dropped theoretically from 20 miles out, this might be a little overpowered without longer range SAMs. At number 12A, the F4E is also missing the PAVE TAC targeting pod, which mounted to the underside of the fuselage, as well as the PAVE spike pod, which sat in one of the forward AIM-7 Sparrow wells, both of which having thermal optics, along with the entire series of paveway laser-guided bombs. Because, you know, if there's one thing America is really missing at top tier, it's ground attackers. Get on that, Gaijin. Aye lads, thank you for watching part 3 of this little series we've got going on here. I doubt I'll have enough for a part 4, but if you do know of any others we haven't mentioned yet, do leave them down below. I didn't mention the F4Js having slats at the moment because that is only a visual bug we already have confirmed will be fixed. And honestly, this one was already very phantom heavy and I could definitely have included even more. Now before I go, I want to draw your attention to a couple of little things. Firstly, being a website we're partnering up with called Everything War Thunder. These guys do super easy to follow guides, they've got all sorts of articles on different parts of the game. But rather than doing this on YouTube like I do, they've got a website you can go and browse with all the links there to check out different squadrons or discords, guides on very specific mechanics like the ins and outs of radar, how to use it, joining squadrons, playing with squadrons, and they do a whole bunch of other things like buyer's guides, custom and historical events, a whole bunch of stuff. I could not recommend more that you go and check them out. I've always felt like War Thunder was lacking that sort of community project. You know, we all have the YouTube channels, but something like World of Warships has, or used to have, Little White Mouse and her content, which was sort of like a blog and website on the forums, giving super in-depth guides and tutorials and thoughts on new content, etc. So the fact that Ads and Tain and the other guys behind Everything War Thunder are sort of trying to do exactly that for this game made me really excited when they reached out to me to ask if I'd help them out. So in future, you might even see a few guides pop up that we had a hand in making. Aside from that, I do want to let you guys know that we are returning to regular live streams. We've said this before, but this time it's not happening over on Twitch, it's happening here on YouTube. We streamed last week for the first time in months, which was very cool, and we are going to stream, I think, every Wednesday, at least if you're in Europe or America. That's Thursday morning for you Aussies and New Zealanders, and Japan and Korea if you guys are watching, etc. I've got a few things that need fixing after the first stream. Wanted to test out a few settings and kind of make sure everything looks good for you guys when we come back officially, and a few extra bits like overlays and such that I do want to get sorted as soon as possible. But either way, going to be streaming this Wednesday, checking out all the new patch content, so make sure to come hang out and say hi there. We'll have to sort out some special perks for channel memberships and stuff for those of you who do happen to want to support me. Anyway, that's it from me for now. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will catch you lads in the skies. The BMP can be considered the very first of its kind of infantry fighting vehicles, and is still in widespread service today. The easily recognisable machine has spawned a wide variety of variations, and served with over 65 nations since its debut in the mid-1960s. Like the Mig21 of the skies, the BMP has proven an adaptable and timeless platform, remaining useful to this day in some very modern militaries.